Good morning. So if we go to Google, type in arsenic poisoning paralysis, we get a link to the CDC and to the NIH, National Institute of Health, Center for Disease Control. What are the physiological effects of arsenic exposure? So we come down to neurological effects. Sensory effects occur earlier, may predominate moderate poisoning, whereas ascending weakness and paralysis may be evident in more severe poisoning. If we click on the NIH link, biological effects of arsenic on man comes up. Acute arsenic poisoning. Symptoms may appear within 8 minutes. A small portion of cases are classed as nervous or cerebral because the conspicuous phenomena are paralysis, collapse, and death. And subacute arsenic poisoning, involvement of the nervous system may begin with sensory changes. Comes down here, marked muscle tenderness, motor weakness of all degrees, including paralysis, with muscle atrophy progressing. And here is a dartmouth.edu link about toxic metals, arsenic, a murderous history, king of poisons, a secret weapon. It says arsenic could also be given in a series of smaller doses, producing a more subtle form of chronic poisoning characterized by loss of strength, confusion, and paralysis. So if we go back to Google and search for lead, arsenic, pesticide history, there's a link to the history of lead arsenic in apple production. There's a Wikipedia article. Lead arsenate was used as an insecticide in fruit trees from 1892 until around 1947. And here's a Wired link. A is for arsenic. In the early 20th century, enthusiastically supported by the US government, the most popular pesticides were arsenic compounds. How popular? In the year 1929, almost 30 million pounds of lead arsenate spread across the country's fields and orchards. And how enthusiastic was the government? Well, in 1935, a weekly radio program sponsored by the US FDA, the host suggested that the old-time school rhyme, A is for apple, be changed to A is for arsenate, lead if you please, protector of apples against arch enemies. The FDA was besieged by angry fruit growers demanding to know why the government was alerting consumers to the fact that farmers put poisons on fruit and vegetables. In the Wikipedia article, it says, as an insecticide, it was introduced in 1898, used against the gypsy moth in Massachusetts. It was considered less toxic than Paris green. Lead arsenate wasn't introduced until the 1890s when it was used against the gypsy moth. From that point on, U.S. farmers embraced it. And if we go back to Google and ask, when was the first U.S. polio epidemic? And here's the site, History of Vaccines. This is what Google says. And it says the first major documented polio outbreak in the U.S. occurred in Vermont. 18 deaths, 132 cases of permanent paralysis. 1894. And here a doctor, an MD in Vermont, said he only found one case where more than one family member had the disease. And it usually occurred in families of more than one child. No efforts were made at isolation. It is very certain that it was non-contagious. So this is essentially the point or the case or the argument that Moth and the Iron Lung makes, is that these poisons that are known to cause paralysis are rolled out, sprayed everywhere on fruit, and they also find out that they're sticky. They don't wash off easily, and then they're not telling people to wash it off. And so it happens in the summer. And so like this paralysis causing insecticide is being used, widely used, even government mandated. And at the same time, or in similar proximity, we have these outbreak of poliomyelitis or paralysis. And, one might say, oh, it's correlation. It just happened to happen, But my question is, what's more likely or more probable, that a paralysis and death-causing disease just comes out of the blue for no reason, just no one knows, and affects all these people, or that a known paralysis-causing chemical is sprayed in abundance and leads to ill health. What's more likely to be the cause? What's, probability wise, what are the odds that a paralysis causing insecticide is widely used, and then this mysterious paralysis causing virus, supposedly, which one is more likely to be the explanation of what's going on? And I don't know for sure the answer. I'm just, as a thinking person, a critical thinking person, I'm like, what makes more sense, And then looking at the trials for how they determined that polio was contagious is, they drilled a hole in a monkey's skull and injected this stuff in there, and the monkeys got paralysis and died, or they just died, and it's like, that's not realistic. All the kids, they got polio. Somebody wasn't kidnapping them in the middle of the night and injecting, through a brain drill into their head, injecting something into them. No, they were just being kids. And in his book, oh my God, I cried like 3 times. The horrible, just terrible accounts of kids being horrifically affected by this thing and having it slowly creep up from their legs through their body into their chest, and eventually they can't breathe, and they're essentially asphyxiating. They choke to death from not being able to use their lungs to breathe. That's where the invention of the iron lung came, and it's such a horrible. Even if they didn't die that way, they often had this horrible crippling from the muscles and everything shutting down and contorting the bones. And it was heartbreaking to hear the stories of parents and terrified children. And, it's just brutal, And so I would like to know the answer for sure, Let's investigate the pesticides and the chemicals and, follow the money. Is there money? Where's the money to be made? Is it in big pharmaceutical and big agriculture, or is the money to be made in natural health and being without these things? Which industry is billions or trillions of dollars, and who's more likely to be pushing a narrative based on their own self-serving agenda and benefit as far as like huge money? Check out the book, take a look, see for yourself, read up on the story, see what sounds convincing to you, or what. At the very least, let's look into it. Let's find out for sure. Like there's so many inconsistencies in the history of all this stuff that for me, it begs the question of like, what really happened here? And then the censorship on top of it, it stinks. It's just, why such a strong effort to cover all this stuff up, or to make it impossible to discuss it out in the open? Why is everyone labeled instead of heard out? Let's hear what they have to say. If they're quacks, then let them say all their nonsense, and then they'll be easily rebutted. If the truth is the truth, it should be super easy to rebut the quacks and to show that they're quacks. If they're not quacks, let's find out. So that's my hope. Let's get to the truth, so we don't have to have any more of these horror stories and these horrible things. And it's just, oh man, it was just brutal to hear those stories. As a parent and as someone who was a child myself, I can't imagine going through that. Just awful. And so my hope is that none of us have to go through any of that anymore, that we can all be healthy and take care of each other. And so let's hopefully come together and take a look at this stuff and find out how to be healthy and take care of each other. And so thanks so much. Hope this helps. If you like this video, please like it, share it, spread it around. Come on over to my website, or you can donate or join and membership. And thanks so much.